Okay, I think I did that right. Okay, thank you for the nod. Welcome, everybody. I am Amy Grincewicz. I am the Director of Instructional Design for Ambassador Crawford College of Business and Entrepreneurship, or as referred to on the slide, ACCBE. We have lots of letters in that. In addition to being the Director of Instructional Design, I also teach online courses for bachelor's and master's students. I am a research colleague with QM. It's so nice to see some familiar names, since I can't see many of your faces, but it's always nice to see some familiar names. Today, for this presentation, I kind of took a slightly different track with a presentation on data. So rather than presenting all the data that we have, which is numerous, I wanted to share the story of what we've done with the data and how we've gotten to be where we are in the college and all of that. So a slightly different take than you might be expecting, but I think you're going to get a lot out of it. And as I'm presenting, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. I've got that up on my one screen so I can kind of keep an eye on what's going on. So I'd love all of your feedback while I'm presenting, because that just makes it more engaging to me. So today I'm going to give you a little story of how in the college we have collected and utilized student feedback for continuous improvement. So our 3-session outcomes today, and I kind of did this in a backwards design approach. As we all know, we use backwards design a lot when we focus on the course design, but for really talking about quality assurance and how we've used the student feedback, I really want to take a backwards design. So we're going to kind of talk about where the college is now with our quality assurance in place, because I think as you go through the presentation, it's going to be really critical to understand all of our quality assurance pieces to then understand all of the data that we've collected and how we've used it. So we're going to talk about quality assurance. We're going to talk about student evaluations, the data we've collected, and most importantly, how we've used that data to really continuously improve not only our courses, but our programs within the college. So starting in that backwards design approach, we're going to talk about delivering innovative, high quality learning experiences. And I love this quote from Aristotle that quality is not an act, it's a habit, because within the college, we have made quality a habit. It is integrated in everything that we do. It's integrated into our mission, our philosophy, and all that will really shine today as I go through what we've been able to do. So while this timeline kind of starts in 2018, it kind of goes back further, but I wanted to showcase and highlight all of the QM certifications that we have within the college. As you see, we have numerous. This whole journey that I'm going to talk about today all started back in 2016, I believe, when I came to the college. And as you can see from our timeline, we really have grown with our QM implementation. We've got numerous courses. A lot of them are online degree programs. We have an online MBA, an MSBA, an MSA, and then we also have a general business degree that is fully online. And then we also have courses certified in our executive MBA, which is not a fully online degree program, but it also shows that we don't just care about our fully online degree programs, we care about all of the courses being offered in the college. So total, we have 37 courses that are certified with the higher education rubric. Right now, those are all in the 6th edition. We are in the process of revising and doing recertifications, all that for the 7th edition, as well as starting to ramp up certifications for our Masters of Accounting or the MSA program. We have 3 courses that were certified on the continuing professional education rubric. Those were primarily courses within a certified business advisor certificate program. And then we also have 4 program certifications, 3 that focus on program design. So that would be the MBA, our MSBA, and the CBA. Those all have the program design certification. And then the MBA also has the learner success certification. So as you see, we really had to have a lot of quality assurance practices, a lot of people involved to get to this level of QM certifications within the college. So as I was putting together this presentation, I needed some inspiration. And somehow I went back to all of the QM workshops that I've ever taken. And we always have that slide with the quality pie. And I love that quality pie. And that has been so impactful in helping to talk with leadership because of QM just really focusing on that design. So I kind of took the quality pie idea and decided to create our quality assurance pie that works for how our college works and all the different pieces that work together. So thank you, QM, for the quality pie, because that was the inspiration for the quality assurance pie. This is how we've done it in the college. There are a lot of things that I'm going to say that you probably can take away to your own institutions. And I kind of look at quality assurance as being something that may be unique for each institution, for each college, for each program, because you're all going to have different parties that are involved. But this is kind of our quality assurance pie. So we start with leadership. And this is the most critical piece of the pie because this is kind of what governs all the other elements of our pie. Within the college, we have 2 distance learning administrators, one being myself, being the director of instructional design, but we also have an associate dean for graduate and online programs. This was not, neither one of these positions were in place when I came to the college in 2016. This is what's grown out of time as we've done all of our QM implementation, we've done our quality assurance, and the college really took a step back and said, we need someone to kind of oversee all of this online within the college. So that's kind of how these 2 positions came to be. And our primary focus of being in that leadership role is we both share that unique culture and mindset that is all geared on quality, but also being research focused. When I first came to the college, one of the first things that I did was I sat down and dived into all of the research on online MBA programs, just business programs in general, to figure out how best that we could focus on creating a quality culture and quality programs within the college. And so that's kind of where I started. And then I had numerous conversations with several instructional designers at different institutions for their business programs. And I kind of took a unique approach with that. And part of that culture and mindset that we've instilled in the college is really about establishing policies and procedures. So within the college, we have taken all of the QM standards and changed that into 15 more streamlined standards that the college uses for all of our online courses. And so it was easier for faculty to understand the 15 than the 44 that's in the rubric. And so that was a lot of work from the leadership end of just kind of creating our own culture, our own standards within our college. So that's where leadership starts. Now, the leadership also works with the pedagogy. And so the pedagogy that we have is really focused on faculty and our instructional support office. So in the college, we have great faculty that have a lot of expertise. They have a lot of knowledge. They've been teaching for years. They've also been well published. They've got A+ publications all over the place. They're internationally known. So we've got great faculty. Like many of us, we've got great faculty that have a lot of knowledge, but they have very little knowledge of online learning. And that's where the instructional support office really comes into play. And so this is kind of that collaborative approach between a faculty and in our instructional support office, we have an associate instructional designer and a lead educational technologist, as well as that's the area that I reside in. And that office is really the one that has all the QM expertise. So the 2 members of my team and myself have we've taken all the QM trainings. And so we don't really put the ownership of the QM on the faculty and have them do all the trainings. We put it more on the instructional support office. And then we basically provide that pedagogy and that support to the faculty and offer lots of professional development on how to design, how to teach. And so all that comes through our office. And that's a big thing for how our college is set up, because the dean, and being an R1 institution at Kent State, we really focus on doing research as well as providing the support for the teaching. And so the dean is loving the fact that we've got a great team with the QM expertise to really help the faculty, so that the faculty can basically work with us on their courses as well as still do all their publications. So that's a slight difference, I think, than a lot of programs where they always have the QM expertise in the faculty. Within my college, we have it within the instructional support office. So then our next pie wedge is support. And this is something that has kind of developed over time. This was not initially in place with our quality assurance pie. This has been really new, of reaching out to all of our student support offices within the college. So we are unique in that we have several, and you can see them on the slide, that really support all the students. Through this is academic advising, career support. And so a lot of that, all these organizations really focus on supporting the students. And so this was kind of a really critical part to our pie, because as we know, especially if you're looking at program certification, there is that learner support certification for the program. And so this is where this has been kind of new for us, is working with all of these other organizations and getting them on board with QM and all of that. And then our final piece of our pie is assurance of learning. One of the nice things working with the college is being accredited by ACCBE. We have a rigorous assurance of learning process. And so leadership, pedagogy, and support all work with the assessment and accreditation committees. And so these are the ones who really do the learning outcomes and all of that, as well as doing faculty curriculum committees. Because nothing that we do and all the curriculum that I'm going to talk about and all the changes we've done, all of that does have to get faculty approval. So the faculty curriculum committees are very important, as well as our faculty advisory committees that were the ones who did approve the standards that we use within the college. So those are our pie wedges. But as you see, we have this outer level of the student. And I looked at it when I was creating my pie, and I said, the student is the crust, because the student is what holds all of us together. They're the ones that we are here to help and support. And so that's why I made them the crust, because they're that integral part that circles everything, because everything that we do is for the student. We are very student focused. We are students first approach. So they're our crust. So this is where we're going to get into how we prioritize student success. These are all the different data methods that we use, that we continuously use to help increase our QM, increase our QM implementation, increase our high quality standards that we have, and help support the students. So leadership's big thing is that we really integrate the mission and the philosophy of the college. So the nice thing is I took a step back and thought about Quality Matters and its philosophy. And Quality Matters philosophy really does integrate well into our strategic plan. And so as you see, the focus that we have on quality assurance with the QM implementation really filters into a lot of our strategic plan objectives. And so that's leadership's main focus, is kind of to guide the other three pie wedges and really make sure that we are focusing on the strategic plan. So one of the things that we did very early on, and this was kind of my doing when I was the senior instructional designer, is we added module feedback surveys to all of our online MBA courses. And this was really impactful because we learned a lot. We really wanted to know if the design we were using in the courses worked, how the students felt about the courses, how much time they were spending. And so this was really critical. And this was one of those, this is part of that pedagogy link, because this was definitely something between the instructional support office and the faculty of getting these module surveys in place in the courses, and then also looking at all that data. So that's where everything kind of started, was looking at module feedback surveys. But then after we got all that data kind of analyzed, which I'll talk about later, then we started looking at other ways that we can implement student feedback. So as also part of the design, we also look at our end of course instructor evaluations. I have an asterisk on this because this is something we are still working out. Because we are really, as a college, seeking the teacher support certification for the program. So we're really trying to utilize those end of course evaluations in a stronger fashion than we currently do. But we do look at that data. For program success, this is really where those support offices that I mentioned really come into play. We have surveyed all of our students across all of our programs on their employment data. We look at student advancement. We've done alumni surveys. And the one piece that I have asterisks at the end of student satisfaction, that's something we're looking at now, because we've really used the QM program reviews and doing that certification as a guide to help us as a college collect more data. And so that student satisfaction is starred because we are still working on that. And so in the undergrad office, we always send out a survey after every advising appointment for the students to fill out for the undergrads. Well, we never implemented that at the graduate level. So that's one of the things that we're starting to do, is take those satisfaction surveys with advisement and now put them into all the other offices. So as you see, we do collect a lot of data from the students, which really do help us with that continuous improvement, because we always want to listen to the students to make sure that we are meeting their needs. And then our final piece of data that we collect is regarding our student success, which is where the assurance of learning comes in. And so we have validated rubrics for all of our program learning outcomes. And then students are assessed, and we look for proficient and expert on each of those rubrics. And so that has been, that's kind of the fun part, is kind of looking at the program level and looking at that curriculum. And so that's kind of where we're at now, is we're still kind of making changes to that with some of the results I'm going to share. So as you see, we do collect a lot of data from our students. And as I mentioned, I didn't want to bore you with all the data. So I really wanted to talk about, we collect all this data, but what has it done for our program? So I really want to talk about the culture of quality that is in place at the college. And part of that is looking at that student feedback data and the insight we've gotten from that data, what we've done, so that intervention that we've had, and the impact that it's had. And so if we look at course design, the module survey data that we acquired was so impactful for our course design. Not only did this help improve each of the courses, but one of the aha moments that I had was that when I was working with faculty and designing their online courses, I would always stress alignment, engagement, and accessibility with them. And we had one faculty member who didn't really want to focus on any of that and just kind of did his course his own way and didn't want to listen. And I was like, okay, we got the module survey data back for his course. And I looked at it and said, guess what? The students are pointing out all the things that I've been saying. So it was nice, because I know faculty don't necessarily want to listen to administration, but they will listen to the students. And so that was really impactful in having that course change. And so the cool thing was, we've gotten a lot of feedback from the students. You can see a little snapshot of what we've done here. One of the big things is we always ask the students for the clarity for their information on the assignments. In some of the assignments, students were not understanding what they were doing. They were confused. We now have faculty reporting that there is a higher quality of student responses to the assignments and less questions coming into their inbox, because now we have this template that we really do kind of outline all the questions that students may have. And so that's been really impactful. We were getting a lot from students about the lack of variety in some of the courses that were very textbook heavy. And so when we were using textbooks and the textbook platforms and all of that, which are really great materials to use, the students wanted more. And so that actually had us creating an outcome or a design standard that we have that faculty are required to create multimedia presentations on topics for each of their modules. And the students really liked that because that gave them a different perspective. It really increased their active learning. It gave us, applications to that real world experience that they were kind of missing by just looking at the textbooks. We've also seen that students like the discussions. They just wanted them to be open-ended. In certain courses, they were more like short answer questions. So we've really kind of listened to the students to redesign a lot of the activities, a lot of those learning activities in the courses to meet what they were saying on those surveys. Now, this is kind of the cool part. So during those module surveys, we also asked about the time that students were spending on the module. And knowing kind of how we were assessing rigor on our end to make sure the course was rigorous enough. But one of the great things that came out of that module survey was that we learned that students did not have they could not comprehend how much time they were supposed to spend in a 8-week 2-credit-hour course. We've always said multiple times that there's always, for every 1 credit or 1 hour in class, you spend 3 hours outside of class studying. Well, students were having a hard time equating that to what that meant in an online environment. And so what we ended up doing was we changed some of the marketing on the program because we were promoting it as a 1-year program. And yes, the program can be done in 1 year, but you really have to not be working full-time, have an active social life, family life, all of that, because in order to get done in a year, you have to take multiple courses. And depending on how many courses you're taking at one time, you may not have enough time during the week to really focus on that. So we changed the marketing of the program. We added information of time commitments to our courses. This is the big thing. This was one of the first things where pedagogy got to work with the support office, where I, being the senior instructional designer at the time, was talking to the MBA academic advisor and saying, this is what it takes to be in this online program. This is what students are doing in these courses. This is how much time they should be spending in. And so it was always kind of having that discussion between the instructional support office, the distance learning staff, and the student support offices, so that they're aware of what we do in our courses, so that they can better advise students on how many courses to take at once or which courses to take. And so that was a big thing, was just kind of having that relationship started. Another great thing that we did this was from a survey and focus groups where we surveyed faculty. We also talked to future employers and we talked to our students, because in one of our analytics courses, we were using R, and we weren't sure if the students would be using R in their future employment. So we actually did that survey and learned that the employers want students to be proficient in Excel and not R. So then we modified the course to meet that. So we are always looking at ways to better improve our programs to make sure we're meeting our students, as well as where they're going to end up with their careers. Program success has been amazing. All of our online programs are soaring in enrollment, to the fact that we've had to hire start new positions for the high enrollments that we have. We've acquired new academic advisors. We have, we're looking for a director of employer relations and graduate programs to support some of the feedback that we've received from the employability surveys that we've done, because we know that our students not only need their coursework, but they need that career development aspect as well. So we're working on that. I just had a conversation yesterday, in fact, with our director of career services for the college, and we are in the process of creating some capstone portfolio projects for our online programs. And part of that is that she was talking to students and she's like, you know, students always think that if they're in this program, they're supposed to get this type of job, but this program can open up their eyes to so many other opportunities. And so we are looking at creating these portfolio/capstone courses where the students would engage in some meaningful reflection, as well as having an e-portfolio to show a potential employer. So we really do listen to our students, and that's why we have all those data that we've been collecting on student satisfaction, their employment data, their advancement. All of that really does come into play, and then we use that to keep improving. We look at student success. This has been one of the most they're all eye-opening, I should say. Like I keep saying that, but they're all great pieces of information. So with our assurance of learning data that we've had, we realized that some of our program outcomes were not measuring up, and students weren't getting to that expert or proficient level. And so what we did was we kind of redesigned some of the courses. So we saw that students were lacking in critical thinking. And part of that was our business strategy course at the time was kind of very textbook heavy. And so we kind of threw away the textbook and redesigned the course with Harvard business cases, other business articles, and that has really allowed for a lot of critical thinking and case discussions to come through. We also found out that for our program outcome focused on global mindset, that students were in the global tech strategy course, and they didn't really have any introduction to global before. And so we learned that the courses focus on global, but because we didn't have a prereq for the global tech strategy course, we now added some prereqs. So that was a big thing of knowing where the students needed prereqs, so we could make sure that we were doing kind of like introducing program outcomes, reinforcing, and then finally showing where they're mastering those outcomes. We also, since getting our program design certification for the MBA, have actually gone and revised all of our program outcomes. So we're in the process of kind of doing a recertification on the program design, because what we found was several of our program outcomes, we had two outcomes. Like we had two critical thinking outcomes, we had two ethics outcomes, where one was more of a surface level, one was more of a critical thinking level. And so what we've done is we've gotten rid of having two outcomes per topic area, and now we just have a more streamlined approach of 8 outcomes. We've also been learning through our students that they don't see the connection from one course to another in our programs. And so one of the tasks that I'm working on now is really revising some of the assignments, revising the rubrics in our courses so that the course rubrics mirror the program rubrics that the students are using, and then enhancing those assignment sheets so that they see, okay, this is what critical thinking entails. So we're adding more depth to what we're giving the students. And so that's kind of what we're working on right now, is kind of that strengthening the connection of each of the courses to each of the program outcomes that they support. And this all goes back to our continuous improvement with our leadership. We are constantly busy, we're constantly changing. One of the things I just did last week was I updated all of our college design standards for the 7th edition rubric, and how our checklist that we use kind of needs to be updated to reflect those changes. So we're always making sure that we're staying current. This is another thing that we're working on, is strengthening those relationships between the distance learning administrators and those student support offices. I've now presented to the graduate programs office on how QM has helped, how we have that QM philosophy and the quality assurance in our program. So graduate student offices are on board. We're working with career services offices now. It's really been a wonderful journey of seeing how what started out as just creating a online MBA program has really influenced everything within the college. We are working on, with the faculty committees, we are working on engagement policies for knowing how much faculty are engaged, and kind of having policies per program on kind of when students can expect feedback on their assignments, when the faculty will be responding to emails, and having that consistent throughout a program, because that's really helpful for the students. And so we go back to our quality assurance pie, where we've got the student at the crust, because they are the ones who are giving us all the data that help each of our pieces. And I can say over the last several years, the college really has embraced a quality assurance, a quality mindset, that just started out with one program, and now it's infused with every program, every course. It's going into our face-to-face programs, because I'm now working with the undergrad curriculum, and making sure that their program outcomes are being supported, and that's not an online program. So we really have taken quality assurance all the way through the college, and it's been such a wonderful journey, and I'm glad I got to share it with all of you. And as always, I always like to save time for questions, in case you have any.
Amy, there's a question in the chat for you.
Let me see. From Laura?
Correct.
Okay. We currently use both open-ended questions as well as scale questions, but find we get a lot of, right? Getting better feedback on the surveys. One of the things that we really did, this wasn't initial in the first round of the surveys, but a lot of it is making sure the faculty are aware the surveys are in there, and having them reach out to the students and say, I actually use these surveys to help improve the course. And so a lot of that, we initially, in the first couple of courses, we just had the surveys and faculty didn't realize they were there, and we weren't getting a lot of feedback. We talked to the faculty and said, hey, these surveys are in there. Let your students know, let them know we're looking at it to improve the course. And so having the faculty post announcements about those surveys really did help them go, oh, they actually use this. Better questions for the surveys. Oh boy. We're still figuring ours out. Initially, the question that we asked about their time commitment was supposed to be them importing a number. And then I would have students who would give me this long explanation of their time commitment. And I was like, okay, so now we're just going to make it a checkbox. Survey fatigue is something that we worried about, because in some courses they were getting the survey 8 times because there were 8 modules. So it may not be you have it in every module, maybe just do it a couple times. Really think about what you want the survey to cover. Like if there's an assignment in there, instead of just having the general question that we have about what did you like about the assignments, really focus the question on a particular assignment, because that's going to help you get the better data too. Any other questions?
Thank you for your reply. That was very helpful. I was, just as you were speaking, I was thinking about some of our questions tend to be, I want to say we try to have them fit all situations. And just from what you're saying, it sounds like we could get better data if we have some maybe questions that maybe we develop at the time of developing the courses that could be more specific to the assignment, more specific to the course itself, instead of kind of relying on the student to say, oh yeah, I want to talk about this assignment I did, 2 months after they've done it, in the narrative section of a comment or a question. So that's helpful. Thank you.
And it's important that if you do it, that you let the students know you're actually using the data, because I think a lot of times they don't realize the importance of those surveys.
Right.
Bill, I love your question. With 6-week courses, I can honestly say accelerated courses are not my favorite. And I think that is something that most people who know me know. Maybe instead of doing it every week, maybe just do it at the midpoint. So they're not getting overburdened. Unless there's like a module with a particular challenging assignment that may happen at the end. So I think being very strategic about where you place the surveys, and like I was telling Laura, have the questions tailored to what you're trying to find. That could be really helpful. How did you get such good support and buy-in for quality initiatives? Somehow I knew you were going to ask something along this line, Bethany. A lot of it was getting the buy-in was definitely challenging. A lot of it was having a vision when I came to the college and having a goal. And when I got there, I had this goal and people were going, you can't make that happen. I was like, I stuck to the goal. I stuck to my mission. And a lot of it was just listening to the faculty. I actually had one meeting with a faculty member where I just sat back and let them talk for a while and just said, and I said, okay, I hear what your challenges are. I also went to his face-to-face course, sat and saw what he did face-to-face and said, okay. I gave him more time. And then I said, I see what you do. I see why you don't think that can happen online. Let me help you. Let me help show you how you can recapture your excellent face-to-face skills in an online course. And so for me, it was a slow process of winning one faculty over after the other. And then once we started getting those certifications, everyone started coming on board, as well as now the faculty want to work with us because they realize it does make their lives easier when they're teaching. And so once we started getting that faculty buy-in, as well as showing the upper level administration, the research and showing what we've been able to do was a really helpful thing. So it's been a long journey, but we now have, instructional support has now a seat pretty much at the dean's table to really talk about some of the issues. And so that's been really helpful. The implementation of the module surveys. For the most part, I don't think faculty really realized the module surveys were in their courses at the beginning. But it really did help drive some of those conversations with faculty when the students were saying the same things that the instructional designer was saying. We also, another clear connection with that is the students were saying the same thing the instructional designer was saying, as well as when the course went up for QM certification, the QM reviewers were saying the same thing. And so kind of having that redundancy really helped. For the most part, we only had one faculty member that was completely against the surveys. And that faculty is unique that they do survey research. And so we just didn't bother with surveys in that course. But all the other faculty, when they started going, oh, these are in my course, how can I see the data? And so then they started looking at the data, and then they started addressing some of those concerns while they were teaching, and then making some adjustments to the courses on the fly. And pretty much the surveys that were initially in our courses started out at Kent State Online. And so that also helped the faculty buy in that it wasn't something that we were creating for the college. It was something the university was using. We were just the one college that actually used them and used the data. Piggyback on David, when you change survey delivery. Bill, I'm really pondering your question. A lot of it is we didn't initially set out to do any research with the surveys. It was more of just internal and knowing that we wanted the data to help improve the courses. And I know the chairs were behind it as well as the associate dean, especially when we were seeing similar things that students were saying in their module surveys come out in the course evaluations. And so a lot of it was, it really helped us kind of identify some of the areas because of the consistency that students had with what they were saying in a module survey and a course evaluation mirroring each other, which was mirroring what we were saying and how the course wasn't meeting our design standards. And I believe we have time for at least one more question because we're almost out of time. Bill, I hope that helped. But I'm with you. I'm still chuckling too, because there's still a lot we need to uncover. But the big thing is we've at least asked the students for their feedback and we've used the feedback. And so I think the students can really see that with how much the program and the college has grown. And I hope you liked my quality pie, my quality assurance pie, because I was so excited when I came up with it. You know, I was telling the associate dean about the pie and he did the same thing. He's like, now I want pie. Are all of you going to start collecting student data and using it to improve courses and programs? Thank you, Catherine. I think they're a good way to really give you more of a piece on the design and not so much the teaching aspect, which is what the end of the course evaluations more focus on.